we're back with the Wimpy Kid, The Ugly Truth by Jeff Kinney. Last time we finished at page 155. Let's continue. After that, the party games were over, and adults said it was time for us to turn in for the night. I think everyone who went into the lock-in was planning on staying up all night, but at this point I was glad to go to sleep if it means the night might go by quicker. I went to the auditorium to get my sleeping bag, which was parked right next to Jennifer Houseman, who was actually not that bad looking, but the grown-ups said the girls needed to take the stuff and move down the hallway to the library media room, and the boys had to stay in the auditorium. I was hoping I could get some rest, but a lot of guys started horsing around, and it was impossible to sleep. At one point, George Flynn chased people around with his Audi, which was pretty terrifying. Scream! See, this is the kind of thing I can't stand about boys my age. When it comes down to it, there's just a bunch of wild animals. Then, when Greg started chasing people around, George chased it around. I excused myself to go to the bathroom so I could brush my teeth. The bathroom is the back of the auditorium, and the lights were off, so it was really dark back there. I heard this weird noise, and I got a little freaked out for a second, because our school has a problem with rodents, which it turns out to be just be Figley playing by himself in the ball pit. Swish, swish. Boys. Around midnight, Mr. Palmera, the school guardian's counselor, told everyone to get into the sleeping bags and settle down. Then he said there was no talking for the rest of the night, and he didn't want to hear a peep out of anyone. Every once in a while, somebody would cut the cheese, and that made Mr. Palmero really mad, because he couldn't figure out who was doing it. After happened with what happened with the earlier pictures, I think the grown-ups were just really sensitive about anything having to do with butts. Hee toot. Mr. Palmero said that if everyone needed to pass gas, they had to go behind the curtain on the stage to do it. So then a lot of boys started taking turns telling Mr. Palmero they needed to go behind the curtain, and then they'd make the most obnoxious noises you can imagine. That went on for a while, and it kind of reached its peak when David Rosenberg went down to the music room and brought back a tuba. Blop. I don't know if it was a coincidence or what, but right about that time the heat went off in the auditorium. In fact, I think someone turned the air conditioner on. All I know is that everyone stayed in their sleeping bags after that. Chatter, chatter, chatter. Shiver, shiver. Chatter, chatter. Shiver, shiver. After a while, Mr. Palmero fell asleep, but all the boys were still awake. Some guys were saying this was like a prison, and people were talking about talking out of there and going home. The problem was that all that exists were padlocked. I guess we should have known that we're getting into when they called this thing a lock-in. Albert Sandy, he said he'd seen a movie when some guy busted the prison with a spoon, and a lot of people got pretty excited about that idea. But it turned out that there was just a bunch of Hollywood baloney, because we got some spoons from the kitchen and couldn't even make a dent in the linoleum floor. Dink, dink. Ding, 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 ding. At about 1:30 in the morning, someone noticed the flashing lights coming out from outside. So we all went to the back of the auditorium to see what was going on. There was a guy from the tow truck company, and he was walking around Mr. Palmero's car, and he tried to get the towing guy's attention so we could break us out of school. But the guy never heard us, and he told Mr. Palmero's car. I thought about waking Mr. Palmero up to tell him, but I figured he should just let him get his rest. By this time, it was so cold in the auditorium that us boys packed ourselves together like sardines in the preserve body heat. Shiver, 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 shiver. I figured it was probably nice and toasty in the library media room, and I was seriously thinking about going back there and joining the girls. But I figured I'd get caught, and I just back there where I started. I think I probably fell asleep around 2:30. At 3, there was pounding on the back door. Then which woke everybody up. Mr. Palmero unlocked the door, and there was a bunch of angry parents standing outside. Apparently, they trying to call the kids to make sure everything was okay, but the kids weren't answering because Mr. Tanner took everyone's cell phones. So then the parents called one another, and everyone got all in a panic. To make a long story short, the parents who came to school took the kids home with them, and that left the only 2 kids who didn't have their own cell phones, me and Rowdy. So that was pretty awkward. Something tells me this whole lock-in idea is just a scheme set up by parents and teachers to turn us kids off to boy-girl parties, and if that's true, the mission accomplished. Monday. I spent the weekend trying to recover from the lock-in since I got zero sleep on Friday night. But I think the whole experiment was just too much for my body, because this morning when I woke up, I was sick. Moan. I admit I faked being sick before to get out of going to school, but usually Mom calls me bluff. Well, I guess we'll have to go to the doctor and get blood work done. But today, Mom took my temperature, and I guess it must have been pretty high, because she said I needed to stay in bed. She said she had to spend the day at the library to study for her final test tonight, and she wouldn't be able to stay home to take care of me. Well, that kind of stunk, because the only good thing about being sick is having someone fuss over you. Are you strong enough to lift this cup? I guess. Mom said that Isabella was working today, and that if there was an emergency, I could go to her. But after Mom left, I locked my bedroom door because I was afraid Isabella might try to come into my bedroom to take her nap. I must have dozed off around noon, and when I woke up, there was a lot of commotion downstairs. The TV was turned on. The TV was turned on, and it was really up loud. I could hear that sounded like a bunch of women talking. Kiss me, Rex. Kiss me to help me snap out my amnesia. I didn't know what was going on, so I just stayed in my room. About half an hour later, Mom pulled them up in her car and went inside the house. 5 minutes after that, all these women streamed out of the door, including Isabella. Mom walked upstairs to my room, and she said she was really steamed. She said she decided to come home early from the library to take care of me. And when she did, she walked into a soap opera viewing party with the maids from the neighborhood. Tonight, Mom had another house meeting and it said that Isabella's service would no longer be required, and that we were all going to have fish around the house. I was happy to hear that because I can stop checking my bedroom for whole socks. And I think we'll leave it there for Tuesday tomorrow. We'll see you next time. Bye.